Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program. We are live and national. Happy to be here. And the phone number, if you want to join us, you know the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And we're going to get into a bunch of things tonight. I want to talk about what's going on with the government shutdown. I want to get into a little bit of what's happening in New York City. The tide seems to be turning. There's a lot of interesting news coming out about Zoran Mamdani. I think a lot of people are losing the gusto for this guy. And personally, I think he's running out of steam. Then I'm going to have a conversation with Charlie Sheen, the Hollywood actor, who's going to tell us all about his Netflix documentary that's really just getting people to go, wow, you did what? We'll talk about that. And, of course, I want to get into, just what's going on. Who's paying for a lot of this crazy that's going on in our government, right? You've got a lot of people that are out there with these protests and whatnot. And clearly, like Senator Cruz said in the Senate part of the bill and in the House part of the bill, Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne with the bill that they've put out to go after the money, follow the money, find out who's funding these things. The Funders Act, I think we've got to really, keep our foot on the gas with that, because so much of the left-wing activism, and I'm being nice, right? It's more like left-wing subversion that's going on, is the result of just pure politics, right? Pure propaganda. And sometimes when you follow this money, it comes from sources that are foreign. And it's people that are outside of the United States that want us to, fall. They want to see us fail. So we're going to get into that, a little bit of preaching to the choir, but very important, I think, in my opinion. Anyway, I want to start off with just announcing that the government is still shut down. And guess what? You've got federal law enforcement out there as if they're getting paid, right? The United States military is out there as if they're getting paid. They show up to work. You know why? Because that's what honor is about. That is what commitment is about. And it's my hope, it's my prayer that we get this thing resolved sooner rather than later for their benefit. But if it's up to our friends in Congress on the other side of the aisle, I say let them wait. Let them wait and let them wait. Now, obviously, those are my own selfish reasons. I think ultimately, the old saying, money is the mother's milk of politics. Well, I guess I'll rephrase that and say the money that the government spends, your tax dollars, is literally like oxygen for Democrats. If they can't spend your money poorly and give it away to somebody who doesn't deserve it, whether it's a criminal, an illegal alien, or somebody else that's undeserving, then they're not interested. They're not happy. They're not living life to their fullest potential if they're not squandering your hard-earned tax dollars and putting our children into further debt. So I want you to hear a clip, because today it seems like Senator Cory Booker took a turn, right? And he, I'm not going to say he had to admit, but he actually did admit that, in fact, this is not a clean CR, and that this is, in fact, something that, we should be asking questions about. Now, he didn't say all that per se, but you know what? He said enough for us to know that it's not true, that this is not a clean CR. Listen to cut number 5, Cory Booker with Wolf Blitzer on CNN.
Why not vote to fund the government, keep it open now, and negotiate on the health subsidies, which won't end for several more weeks, and let that play out in the coming weeks, but at the same time, keep the government open?
I love that you asked this question, because it is not true that this is a clean CR. What we see for the last we have seen for the last 4 years, why there was no government shutdown when Democrats controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House, is they brought all the parties to the table and we did it in a bipartisan process. Donald Trump controls the White House. He has the most complicit set of Republicans in the House and the Senate. He controls them both. He has said in his own words in the past, it is up for the President of the United States to bring the parties together and get a budget passed. So to be saying that this is the Democrats is utterly wrong. He holds the responsibility. And what are we standing up for? We're standing up for the twin tsunamis of healthcare disaster that will be hitting our state, our country in a matter of weeks.
All right. So the senator is here saying this is not a clean CR. But in effect, he's admitting the exact opposite. They could, in fact, have this thing done. Right? The president has urged members of Congress on every side to make this deal. This is a deal they've made in the past. So what's the difference here? The last time they agreed on this CR. That was clean last time. It's not clean this time. Well, the difference is Trump. They don't like Trump. They don't want to deal with Trump. They were willing to make certain concessions. If Trump comes around, they say, no, hold up, we're going to change things up here. Right? We're going to make this a big deal. We're going to make all the noise that we can. And their hope is that people will feel pain as a result of the government shutdown, that people will go without their paychecks, that people will go without being able to get, certain government services as certain government offices are closed. And their hope is that pain, that boot on the neck that they are placing, right? The Democrats, it's the Democrats that have voted now 3 times for this. They're hoping that will sway your public opinion. I don't believe they're right. I believe they're totally mistaken here. I think it's a miscalculation. I believe most people are going to look at this and really ask the question, why? Why? What is the deal here? What is the major change that's occurred here that we have to make all of these moves right now? I think most people are on board with trying to get things moving forward. So I think I agree with the senator. It's incumbent on the president to bring people together, and I think he's done that. I think he's called for that. He's calling for peace all over the world. Other breaking news today, right, is the Hamas deal. Each party is now signed on the dotted line, agreeing to enter the next phase of the peace deal. I think I got a clip on that as well. Check this out.
Incredible news here tonight that broke just within the last hour. First, we heard on Israeli television that there was a deal for the first phase of this peace plan, this agreement in Gaza to end the war and to release the hostages and to release Palestinian prisoners. Then we had the Trump Truth Social post, which really is what Israel was waiting for in order to make the formal announcement. And the Truth Social post said, "I'm very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly." In essence, we also have heard from the foreign minister of Qatar, the prime minister, of Qatar, who made the similar announcement that the hostages and the prisoners will be released and that Israel will be withdrawing to an agreed-upon line. Now, based on my reporting tonight, Laura, that agreed-upon withdrawal line will be about 51% of Gaza. So it will not be out of the entire Gaza Strip, because in this first phase, which is expected to start on Saturday or Sunday in terms of the 20 live hostages being released, hopefully all together from the Gaza Strip, there is no word yet on the dead hostages, the 28 hostages who are deceased, that Hamas says that they have not been able to locate all of them because Israel is controlling right now 80% of the Gaza Strip.
So there you have it, the breaking news. And forgive me for not leading with that. I wasn't sure if we had that audio ready yet, but that is the big news of this evening. And to underscore the point I was making, President Trump's doing that, right? He's out there. He's bringing in his son-in-law. He's getting the ambassador Witkoff lined up, dealing with Secretary Rubio, doing everything that he can do to make a deal here so that we can have peace in the Middle East. And he's been doing it again with the folks in Russia. And it's not moving as quickly as people would like. I get that. That doesn't mean that this is a a fault of his. This just means that it's not happening that quickly. Sometimes these things take time, and I get it. I'd be critical too if it were the other way, right? If it were Biden or Obama, I'd have a field day with it. So I get it. But at the end of the day, I'm seeing progress. And you're going to have Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer and the media turn around and say, it is, and Cory Booker turn around and say, well, it's the president's job to bring this all together. These guys are giving out tax breaks to this. And last I checked, tax cuts were good for everybody. I mean, maybe call me crazy. Call me conservative, if you will. But I love a good tax cut. I would love to see more of them. I'd love to see them become permanent. I'd love for them to never be around again. I would love to hear that everybody gets paid and they don't pay any taxes. Now, I realize that, everybody makes the argument, well, we do like roads and we do like having police and fire departments and this and that. Got it. I got all of it. But I'd still love it, right? We can figure things out. You start from zero and then you move forward. Anyway, so that's what's going on in Washington. That's what's going on in the Middle East. And now I want to switch gears and talk to you about what's going on in New York City. Right now, ground zero for communism in America. I know, some of you thought it was Portland, Oregon. Nope. I say it's New York City because you've got 4 years or 8 years of de Blasio, and he was surely a communist sympathizer. And now we stand the chance to break away from that. The legacy of Eric Adams, the legacy, the infamy, I should say, of Adams, the infamy of Cuomo, the infamy of Comrade de Blasio, and go into a new direction with somebody who's never been a politician, somebody who's built an organization from the bottom up, somebody who worked at McDonald's as a young man, somebody who rides the subways, somebody who's genuinely of the people and from the streets. This is an opportunity unlike another that New York has seen. And yesterday, getting the endorsement of America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani, Curtis Sliwa, enjoyed that. And I want to get some reaction to that from the former minority leader of the New York City Council. Joe Borelli's coming up straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
We're in the heart of the Bronx, the birthplace of hip-hop, and this is a diverse and vibrant community filled with New Yorkers who are filled with opinions, things they'd like to tell the next mayor about what they want to improve here in the Bronx. Like so many New Yorkers we spoke with in all of the 5 boroughs this week, reducing crime, addressing homelessness, and overall improving the cost and quality of life here, topping Bronx residents' concerns.
They need to improve the Bronx by getting off all them homeless people you see around there by the train station and up there, try to put them somewhere like in a home or a facility and make sure that at least they try to get like at least a meal a day. I feel like that can help.
What issues most concern you about the Bronx that you'd like to see fixed?
The homeless.
I think they should put more NYPD on everywhere in the Bronx.
How come?
It's dangerous out here, especially for old people, especially around here. It's dangerous at any time of the day. It could be in the morning or at night. But I think NYPD, more NYPD.
I live here. Oh my God, it's so bad.
Too many drugs.
Yeah, and the younger people. I feel so guilty about them.
I think the bus service needs a little bit of help. I think right now you have a lot of people that pay their fare, and then there are a lot of riders that just hop on the bus, so it's a little bit frustrating.
Take all the police officers that's not working off our streets, because all they're doing is babysitting the streets. They're not doing anything.
They're not doing anything. Again, I wanted to play that full clip for you so you can get a sense of what's going on inside the minds of voters and residents in Bronx, New York. And I want to get some reaction to that and have a little bit of a broader conversation with our guest, the Honorable Joe Borelli, former minority leader of the New York City Council. Councilman Borelli, welcome, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for having me, Rich. Always great to talk to you. Hopefully see you soon in person, maybe walking around New York City at some point soon.
Oh, absolutely. With 19 days before early voting, I'll be on the campaign trail for our buddy Curtis Sliwa for sure. And I want to get your thoughts on this because, I mean, it seems to me like the Bronx is fertile ground to make some inroads where people, they're not talking about affordability per se. They're talking about fairness and safety in the community. And, let's be honest, not everything is Staten Island, right? There's some really rough parts of town.
Well, look, that's the concerning part. The issues are on the side of Curtis Sliwa. There's no question about that. And I don't know. I don't have an answer why his campaign's not making the progress we need, but it's getting late early, and I'm really pulling for Curtis, but he's got to get in that second place position before early voting starts if he wants to have a real chance. There was a poll out just 2 days ago polling Latinos. We were talking about the Bronx. The Bronx is home to a great number of Latinos. And what struck me as odd was that Mamdani was polling 48% amongst Latinos. Latinos are a conservative group. Rich, you know this, right?
Yeah.
Latinos are a conservative group, and yet for some reason that Democratic line is just so important to so many voters that in this poll at least they're pulling for Zohran Mamdani. It's bizarre.
It is bizarre, but you know what? Thankfully, I'm old enough to remember a woman who was a senator in New York. She also served as Secretary of State, and then she ran for president. And the polls had her up, I think, up to Election Day at 38%. She was doing really well against candidate Trump, and she lost. So, I mean, I don't have the faith that I think a lot of people have in the polling that's available. And I know, it's a little bit of apples and oranges, a federal election to a statewide election or a citywide election, excuse me. But I do believe that when I play clips on this program, sometimes I have a hard time finding a reporter that will say that there are three candidates in this race. Oftentimes, they make it seem like it's a Democrat primary with Cuomo running versus Mamdani, and they exclude Curtis. So it doesn't surprise me that Curtis is underpolling because he's being underrepresented in the media.
But here's the issue. It's not the same dynamic as Trump-Clinton because that was a poll of two people who the polls narrowed, as we got closer to the election. And yes, it was viewed as a fait accompli, but people were looking at the head-to-head match. My fear and my reality, right, because I'm someone who probably wants Zohran Mamdani to lose more than I want any one candidate to win, which is a crazy place that I thought I'd never be in. But the reality is, if people are going to, the polls are the only thing people may have, whether they're right or wrong.
Right, to go by.
That people can go by to judge who's in second place.
Right. Well, let's pick up right there when we come back, because I think this is an important place, and I think that's where it's going to come down to the ground game and people like Joe Borelli and Rich Valdez hitting the streets in the next 19 days before early voting in New York City. Amigos, we're coming right back with former Republican minority leader, New York City Council, Joe Borelli. Don't go anywhere. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Difference between Cuomo and Mamdani when it comes to crime. They're both for no cash bail. Remember, Cuomo started that and destroyed the state of New York. The criminals actually run free now. We live in a state and city where we lock up toothpaste and we don't lock up criminals because of Cuomo. He raised the age. Now we have juvenile drive-by shootings because of Cuomo. He doesn't want a prison. He wants to close Rikers Island. So does Mamdani. They share all of these anti-decent quality of life situations that would diminish New York City even further, put the last nail in the coffin. I'm the only law and order candidate.
That is Curtis Sliwa. And Curtis Sliwa making the case between his campaign and the others. And our guest, former minority leader in the New York City Council, Joe Borelli, made a very solid point, which I think is the issues are all on the side of the Sliwa campaign, and now it's just a question of getting the message out there. I want to bring back Mr. Minority Leader Joe Borelli. And, sir, let's talk about some of these issues, because I think the biggest problem, at least from my discussions with pollsters, is that it's been a softball campaign for Mamdani. He's not really being pressed by the media. In fact, one of the hardest interviews I saw him do was conducted by Jorge Ramos from Univision, asking him about his thoughts on, whether he considered the leader of Cuba or the leader of Venezuela to be dictators, which he refused to answer and dodged these questions. And it leads me to believe if you've got a very left-wing journalist like Jorge Ramos asking the tough questions, what is going on in the regular media, and what are they protecting him from?
Look, this is the vulnerability for Mamdani, right? This is the same vulnerability for Cuomo in the Democratic primary when he was seen as the, sort of the heir apparent, the likely winner. He tried to run a rose garden, campaign and avoid some of the questions about nursing homes and sexual harassment and, bail reform, raise the age. And then there were questions from the left, like things, especially in the Democratic primary, that he did over the years that really angered some progressives. And that strategy didn't work. So that is a major, major vulnerability for Zohran Mamdani, because the truth is he can't answer those questions. If you saw his statement on the October 7th anniversary yesterday, you know that this is not a guy who really has a grasp on what the majority of New Yorkers want. I mean, just think that leave aside anti-Semitism for a moment, right? Just pretend Israel, Palestine, and all the political context wasn't even there. It's a day that's memorializing thousands of people murdered. Just say you want to pay tribute to the horrible murders of these people and move on. But no, he had to go on and blame Israel. Like, this is the problem for him. He can't give a straight answer without alienating more people than he attracts. So, you've identified the strategy, Rich. It's let's avoid the press as much as we can before the general election, and maybe people will just, sleep themselves into voting for me. That's the fear. And again, it's on a number of issues.
Yeah, listen, I think you're spot on there. And I think the other part of this is when he's being pushed. One of your former colleagues, Frank Morano, and I had a good conversation about this. And one of your neighbors. And you're a councilman, right? That's how I should put it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And I should say that Frank said, when Zohran Mamdani ran, he just smiled his way through the primary talking about affordability and didn't really answer a lot of the ideological questions. He wasn't talking too much about this globalizing the intifada. He wasn't doing anything other than, yelling
Rich,
at ICE.
Hold on. You got to add one thing, because Frank's right. But the things he was saying, unlike a lot of politicians, he was genuine about. He genuinely believes the things he's saying, and he comes across as genuine. And I do believe, and the problem with having so many controversial beliefs is that he's genuine on those too, even the ones that are absolutely crazy.
He's a real radical.
Right, but I think he believes his policies will help a certain segment of society, and that's what conveys or allows people to start liking him who might not like the policies.
Right. No, yeah, I get it. AOC, I think people like her because of her personality. I don't think that people really like these policies. I think just, every now and again they come in with something that is an us versus them type of communist ploy, and people go for it when they don't know better, and, they're downtrodden because they're just trying to make a living. But ultimately, I think this stuff is now kind of catching up with him, where people are saying, well, hold on a second, this whole free train thing. I mean, the guy in the little red hat makes a point. It's not very safe out here. I went to an event with Curtis a couple of weeks ago in Washington Heights, right on Dyckman. And while we were there, he came out of the car. He had a security guard with him and his body guy. And literally within seconds, a woman that was clearly, I don't want to use the term crackheads, I'll say, a woman that was dealing with issues of substance abuse, was dirty and disheveled, like she'd been on the ground sleeping, literally just went up to him and attacked him, started grabbing him. Then she grabbed the other guy. She was grabbing everybody. And it was like, whoa, and nobody wanted to really push her because, she's a girl. But it's just the amount of emotionally disturbed people walking around New York that are either high or somehow zombified in some other way is heartbreaking.
And the person who closed so many of our larger institutions was Andrew Cuomo, just to get back to some of the mistakes that he happened to make. And certainly the list goes long and deep. And the list that Curtis pointed out when you had that opening clip from Curtis is interesting because he talked about bail reform and raise the age and close Rikers. Now, he is directly responsible for the first two. The third, Rikers Island, he had nothing to do with it. It wasn't a state thing. It wasn't even really, his prerogative.
And he got involved.
But now he's changed his tune, right? Because he doesn't have a record on the issue. He realizes he has to attract some people from the right. So there's one of those issues where he can, avoid a little bit of
siphon votes
and changes, right? Siphon some votes. Now he's against closing Rikers. I mean, heck, I'm against closing Rikers too. So that's a positive. That's a big part of how Curtis is shaping the race, is that he's forcing, Cuomo to really adopt these positions. The problem is that unfortunately it's going to be the split vote.
Right. Yeah, and I get that. The spoiler effect is definitely, not a good one. But I think that there's still a lot of people that are, not that short in memory. I think I remember the how anti-Cuomo New York was not that long ago, Joe Borelli. I mean, it's 2025. People were, they wanted him dead. Not that they were going to try and harm him, and I'm not calling for violence, but people were upset that he literally oversaw this executive order that took the lives of some 15,000 seniors. And I don't know that people are ready to move past that.
No, and many people never will, and that's a problem for his campaign. And look, they've reached out to me and asked me, some feedback, and I told them the truth. I said, if you want to attract Republicans, what you're going to have to do is actually address the fact that you were wrong on some things, and say it very humbly that you were wrong on many things about COVID. And some things people will give you a little grace for. Many things people won't. But that's the only plan. I just don't know if Andrew Cuomo has humility in his bones. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it's a thing he can do. And again, all this stuff plays into Mamdani winning. That's the problem.
Now, final point here. I believe if my political strategy advice here is about raising the awareness of his negatives and moving the needle on the unfavorables. Do you think that is the best strategy? Attack, negative ads, highlighting where he falters, he being Mamdani, or is it continuing to try to build with the electorate, smiling, kissing babies, or is it both and?
I think Curtis has to make himself closer, if not in second place, before early voting starts, which he only has 19, 20 days left. And I think it's depressing the vote on Mamdani, showing the world who Mamdani is, what it means for your future in New York. I think you have to take that 45% number, let's just use a number, right? And you got to get Mamdani's number down to 35, 36% of the vote. And then with a split vote, Curtis could win, Cuomo can win, and then we have a real race.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's presuming the numbers are accurate. I guess my final point here, what kind of movement do you expect to see from the upcoming debate?
Well, I think it won't give Mamdani an opportunity to hide on that many things because both candidates will be, shouting at the heavens about his flaws. Yeah. And Cuomo and Curtis would be foolish to go at each other at this point, even though, my original point is that Curtis needs to be in second place. I still think attacking Mamdani is the better play in the debate, making him, if he is speaking, more than a third of the time, if he is speaking closer to half the time, it's a good day for both other candidates because Mamdani can't defend so many of his policies. He's going to talk himself into a tailspin, and then we'll have all the time in the media, hopefully, to actually analyze and parse out some of the nonsense he said.
Yeah, I believe this election is going to be won in the final month before final election day. If we look at last year, early voting didn't really move the needle. It was election day that really moved the needle. I think we're going to see that, but I may be wrong. Different campaign, different candidates. So, Councilman, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Let everybody know how they can follow you and keep up to speed with what you're up to now.
Oh, thanks for having me. Joe Borelli, NYC on Twitter or Instagram or X or whatever you call it now, but Joe Borelli, NYC. Thank you so much, Rich.
No, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Godspeed. My best to the family. Amigos, we continue. We continue with your thoughts, your calls, your reactions on communism in New York City. The government shutdown continues. Mike Lawler, and who's a Republican congressman from New York, and Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat congressman from New York, going at it today. We've got a couple of clips of that, both very interesting. So we're going to do all of that and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Because you're so afraid of Zoran Mamdani. By the way, when are you endorsing him?
By the way,
do you endorse him for mayor?
First of all, are you
going to endorse him for mayor?
Listen, you're a complete and total embarrassment right now.
Why is that? Because you don't want to answer the question?
Is this supposed to be a video for your failed re-election?
You don't want to answer the question? Do you support Zoran? By the way, did you see his statement yesterday?
Listen.
An embarrassment on October 7th blaming the Jews? You support that? Should he be the Democratic nominee for mayor?
First of all, I don't answer to you.
Should he be the Democratic mayor? Should he be the Democratic nominee for mayor?
I'll answer whatever questions I need to answer about the mayor's
race. So you think
his
statement yesterday was okay?
First of all,
that's sad.
That is Congressman Mike Lawler calling out Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries because of this crazy comment made by Zoran Mamdani, essentially blaming the Jews for being attacked on October 7th 2 years ago. And a stupid political move in a city that has more Jews than, I don't know, anywhere besides Israel and maybe Boca Raton. And now we've got Mamdani, trying to ruin the rest of the city. So I want to get your thoughts on what's going on here, because this is a dire situation. We need all hands on deck. Let's go to Joplin, Missouri, KZRG. Gene, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich, I love your show. I listen to you every night on my way to work in Oklahoma. I had to leave northern New Jersey. I'm a military mom. I lived there my whole life. I've been a taxpayer my whole life. And Mike Lawler's from Rockland County, New York. I know friends of his. He's brave. But I am so scared for New York City area. Mm-hmm. I have so many family and friends there. If Mamdani wins, he is going to be a disaster. If I follow Kevin O'Leary on Facebook and Instagram,
Mr.
he's
Wonderful?
saying that people are not going to invest there. I don't blame them. Because guess what? Socialism fails. It fails because you run out of other people's money. New Jersey has taxed me to death. I can't afford to live there. My grandparents were immigrants. They worked hard. There was no safety net for them. And then we give everything to migrants that are not here legally, and the average taxpayer cannot survive. What is going to happen to New York City is beyond my comprehension. And we have to protect Israel. I'm a Christian. I'm neither a Republican or a Democrat, but I pray for Donald Trump every single day, and I think he's doing a good job. My liberal friends, I have some very liberal friends, don't agree with me. I think Trump is doing amazing. I think that God spared his life when that bullet just about hit him, because he has a plan for Donald Trump. And I believe in the bigger picture. New York City is in big trouble. Curtis Lewa is right. I have so many friends in law enforcement back east, and I know NYPD, long lines of the NYPD. Who would want that terrible job? And this socialist, he's AOC with a penis, I hate to say it. They want the homeless in those disgusting subways. Like Curtis Lewa said, there's rats, there's mold. How cruel. Are we a Christian nation? Fine, we don't have to agree with any religion, but I don't care if you're a Jewish person, a Christian, anything. How could you think of another human being being subject to that? Yeah. You know what? Our country is in big trouble if this socialist wins in New York City. I think Curtis Lewa is brave. I think Mike Lawler is brave. He stood up and told the truth. And you know what? I'm so tired of people squelching the truth. And it's scary these days because you tell the truth or you make yourself a lightning rod about the truth. Someone might take you out. I mean, gosh.
It's very sad, Jean, and I agree with so much of what you're saying, and I appreciate your passion, and I wish we had more of that. And I think you're a perfect example, right? I also fled New York City, across the river. I now live in Bergen County, northern New Jersey, and I'm on my way to fleeing here too, because it just doesn't make sense. Even if you make more money and you can manage to survive here, why would you want to pay all the tax here when there are wonderful places, right, where you've got Ron DeSantis and Byron Donalds and no taxes in Florida, Tennessee, Texas. I mean, just some amazing places that I think, it just makes all the sense in the world to go there. Plus, I happen to have an affinity for palm trees and warm weather. So call me crazy. I love the beach. I think that we're going to see a lot more of that exodus. You're right. Mr. Wonderful has made a very good case about the lack of investment that's going to be occurring in New York City. And it's not just we're not going to invest there now. It's going to become, we've got to get out of here now. And that's when it's going to really become a problem. When you start to have more office space than they currently have, that's for rent than is, than is occupied. This is a huge problem. You're going to see all sorts of revenue problems in the city. And it's just going to spawn squalor and it's going to spawn crime. And it's very sad. You're right. It really is. Socialism kills, and it ends up moving on when it runs out of other people's money. Really well put. Gene, thanks for the call. Shout out to Joplin, Missouri. God bless you, and thank you and your family for your military service. And amigos, I'm coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company, live and national. Of course, we have lots and lots to discuss. Each night, we're here for 3 hours, but it goes by quick, very, very quick. So I want to hear from you guys, 833-4Valdez. Of course, if you miss any of the conversations, any of the interviews I do, if you miss them, you go to richvaldez.com. Make sure you check out the interview with Charlie Sheen and everybody else that we've got on the show. I think it's everybody has a very important purpose here, whether it's to entertain or to inform and to keep us up to speed and be informed patriots that, have a good laugh and hear about what's going on in popular culture as well. So keep it locked right here. We continue in some parts of the country and others. This is the end of the road for you. That's okay. I say hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez. More to come.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of our program. We are live and national. Happy to be with you this Wednesday night, 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and happy to speak with you guys as well. We are live and national, so you know the number 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Big breaking news story tonight, of course, is that both Israel and Hamas have signed off on the agreement to continue to pursue peace. I think it's being labeled as a ceasefire, and there is a headline I'm looking at that says may release all hostages. There was talk about releasing like one set of hostages and then another hostage group after that. The terrorist organization Hamas has reportedly agreed to ceasefire in Gaza and the peace plan set by the Trump administration. It's a big deal. If you're not hearing about it on your news, it's because they hate Trump and they don't want you to think he's doing anything good. But this is a big deal. These guys actually put their names on the dotted line and made a deal. According to the Times of Israel, a peace deal could be signed as early as this week. So face-to-face meeting. They are ready to put their John Hancock on the bottom line, and I think that's fantastic. Sources in the Palestinian resistance tell the Hezbollah-affiliated outlet Al Mayadeen that Hamas has agreed to a Gaza ceasefire deal, adding that it will be signed Thursday in Egypt. Now, again, Thursday in Egypt is right about now, our time. I think that's kind of how it works. They're like a day or half a day ahead of us. I think like 15 hours or something like 9 hours. I'll do the math later, but it's definitely tomorrow by now. And during the press conference on Wednesday, President Trump said he may visit Egypt sometime later this week for a possible peace agreement. How about that? Saying, quote, I may go there toward the end of the week, maybe on Sunday, actually, but there's a very good chance that negotiations are going along very well. We're dealing with Hamas in many of the countries. As you know, we have all of the Muslim countries included. All of the Arab countries are included, and very rich countries, and some that are not so rich. Our final negotiation is with Hamas, and it seems to be going well. Big deal. Kudos to El Trompito. According to Sky News, images from the negotiations in Egypt show what appeared to be delegates hugging and shaking hands, which U.S. correspondent Mark Stone said look like celebrations. Quote, there's an agreement among negotiators that it will be Donald Trump who makes some official announcement, which goes back to the note that they were reporting on earlier. I think President Trump has already, reporting was done before he put on Truth Social that a peace deal had been reached. So, again, kudos to El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States, pulling off peace in the Middle East again, right? Let's not forget the Abraham Accords. I think this is a remarkable achievement, for the people in Gaza and the people in Israel. Everybody's going to, hopefully pursue peace. I hope it's a lasting peace. I'm very skeptical. I'm not very trusting when it comes to Hamas, but I look at what the president wrote, and I know he's not trying to put himself out there to have egg on his face. All right, listen to this. This is a little while ago, 6:51 Eastern Time, so a couple hours now. I'm very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps towards a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, and Turkey, who worked with us to make this historic, unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. You know what that is? That's a beatitude. That's a quote from my man JC. Jesus. Anyway, signed Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. He actually doesn't really sign these tweets that way very often. So I think that was done to make it official-ish. And that's great. I'm loving what I'm seeing. I think, earlier today I was having a quick conversation with somebody about President Trump, and his temperament came into it. And I said, find me a more peaceful president than Trump. Really, find me a more peaceful president. This man was shot. He was bleeding. He pumped his fist in the air saying, fight, fight, fight. He didn't come back with a vengeance. He came back with a humility, with care for how people live and that they live. I have to have a high degree of respect for someone like that. How could you not? Right? You literally have to just say, you know what? I tip my hat to you, sir. You're a class act, doing the right thing. Think of Democrat and previous Republican administrations. What would have happened right now? Rhetoric would have ramped up, and we'd be talking about how we have to, not act unilaterally, but in support of our ally, Israel. And we'd probably be engaged in multiple wars right now. We'd probably be in World War III, triggering Article 5 in NATO. I mean, all sorts of things could be happening. They're not, because I think of Trump's very steady hand when it comes to leadership on these international issues. My 2 cents. I think this could be, right now we could be ramping up the war machine and doing what we do best, right? It's not for nothing. Who makes better bombs in the United States? We're not second to Russia, that's for sure. They might make more of them, but they don't make them better. So anyway, that's the story with Hamas. There's a bunch of things going on today. That was just the big story. Government shutdown continues. This is always a clever and wonderful time of year, right? The government shutdown. And again, I say it tongue-in-cheek. I do feel bad for everybody that, may be going through a tough time. But ultimately, it is what it is, right? We can get this. If you, as the great Seinfeld and George Costanza, right, on his show, when they had that episode, I don't know if you've seen that episode, where they start talking about hand. He's like, well, you don't have enough hand, right? Trump says, you don't have the cards, right? But that's really the case here. The Democrats don't have the cards here. And they're trying to act as if they do. Putting together this massive wish list and trying to, play hardball and say, all right, we'll close down the government. Yeah, you watch. When it's the Republicans who are in that position. They can do that. And again, if I were Trump, and we know Trump can be very boisterous, and the bluster is not something that he's shy to use. But he hasn't. Honestly, he's been very, I think, focused on this peace stuff, that he hasn't really been trolling the Democrats too much, other than the sombreros, which were fantastic, by the way. But ultimately, again, I've said it before, I said it again, I would make it a point to do one of those things where he goes on to like Marine One and everybody, the gaggle chases him. Mr. President, they're all yelling at him. I would say, let Schumer and Hakeem know that I am going to be right here in the Oval. Forgive me for putting my leather-soled shoes on top of the Resolute desk. But since the government's shut down, I'm just going to put my feet up and I'm just going to hang out here and order a couple of pizzas. I would rub it in their face and say, look, no, you want to waste time? I'll show you how to waste time. And put the pressure on them. Why? Because they don't have hand. They don't have the cards here. They don't. They need to play ball. And instead of playing ball, they're trying to double down. And I personally don't think it's going to work. I don't think people look at the media the way they used to. I think people see the media as fake and phony and fraud in many ways. And this is I think, a do or die moment for them personally, my thoughts. A little bit later, we're going to have a conversation with Charlie Sheen. So keep it locked here for that. The Hollywood actor has a Netflix documentary that's out, and a book as well. The book is Sheen. And very interesting stuff. I watched the documentary, and I'll take a pause in a moment, and I'll come back and I'll tell you a little bit about what I gleaned from the documentary, and then Mr. Sheen is going to be giving us a call. But interestingly, it doesn't end there, right? And moving on from Sheen, there are a bunch of investigations that are coming out of Washington that I think people need to pay attention to. When you've got these black-clad individuals out there that are just, really kind of wilding out, right? You got the Antifa group that's, happy to get sprayed in the face lately because federal law enforcement personnel has been a little bit more aggressive as they've gotten more aggressive. They're being met with that same level of force, and it's a good thing. And, people are happy to see the streets getting finally cleaned up. So the question becomes, who's funding this stuff and why, right? So we'll talk about that, this subversion of America and what that looks like and how they have DAs in their pocket, if you will, or on their payroll, or, that they've bankrolled politically. They've got, for sure, we know that they've had a mayor of New York City and Bill de Blasio. His own daughter got arrested during the riots a couple of years back. And, of course, Zoran Mamdani. I don't know that he has any children, but wouldn't surprise me if he's supportive of this stuff as well, because of what he said. His rhetoric is pretty harsh. So we're going to talk about that as well. And there was something else I wanted to add here. Oh, yes, James Comey. James Comey pleading not guilty today. He was arraigned. There's a statement that he put out as well. If we have the audio of that, I'll bring that to you. But he's making his talking head, basically, I'm not guilty, blah, 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 blah. Probably the same stuff that he said last time. So James Comey, former director of the FBI, says he's not guilty. Anyway, keep it locked right here. We're coming back. Charlie Sheen is coming up with us in a little bit. And I want to give you some thoughts on what I got out of his documentary when we return.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Today, we are announcing the arrest of 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht for igniting a fire that ultimately burned down the Palisades earlier this year, killing 12 people, destroying more than 6,800 structures, both homes and businesses, and damaging over 1,000 more buildings. The complaint unsealed today charges the defendant with destruction of property by means of fire, a felony that carries a mandatory minimum 5-year federal prison sentence and is punishable by up to 20 years in federal prison. The defendant was arrested yesterday on a federal criminal complaint near his Florida residence, and he's expected to make his initial appearance today in the federal court in Orlando, Florida. I stress that the complaint contains allegations, and every defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The allegations in the affidavit are supported by digital evidence, including the defendant's ChatGPT prompt of a dystopian painting showing in part a burning forest and a crowd fleeing from it. And we're going to put that up on the screen here once we get that going. The allegations are, there it is. That's from his ChatGPT. That's an image he produced a few months before the fire started. It shows the city being burned there. The allegations are further supported by the defendant's cell phone, his false statements to law enforcement, and his behavior during the Lockman fire, which the defendant is charged with maliciously starting shortly after midnight on New Year's Day of this year, and which eventually became the Palisades fire. Late last New Year's Eve, Rinderknecht returned to Pacific Palisades after working the evening shift as an Uber driver. 2 of his passengers told law enforcement that he appeared agitated and angry that night. After dropping off a passenger in Pacific Palisades, Rinderknecht parked his car and tried and failed to contact a former friend. He exited the car, walked up a nearby trail, took iPhone videos at a nearby hilltop, and listened to a rap song whose music video included objects being lit on fire. The defendant had listened to this song and watched its music video repeatedly in the days leading up to the Lockman fire. 12 minutes into the new year, environmental sensing platforms indicated that a fire had started. It took the defendant several tries to contact 911 to report the fire. He fled the scene in his car, but turned around after passing fire engines driving in the opposite direction to fight the fire. While the Lockman fire burned, the defendant walked up the same trail from earlier that night to watch the fire and firefighters, using his iPhone to take short videos of the scene. Although firefighters suppressed the blaze, the fire continued to smolder and burn underground within the root structure of the dense vegetation. So that fire started on January 1st, and it smoldered underground for about a week until on January 7th, heavy winds caused this underground fire to surface and spread above ground, causing what became known as the Palisades Fire.
So, again, that is Bill Asaley, the acting United States Attorney for the District of California. And I wanted to make sure you heard what he had to say in its entirety, because he said a lot. And I know immediately, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm just saying immediately we're going to hear that, you mean this one guy of 29 years, Jonathan Rinderknecht, who's accused of maliciously sparking a brush fire on January 1st, is now the sole person that is being blamed for what was originally billed the Pacific Palisades wildfire, is really now a fire that was maliciously set. It was arson that killed 12 people, destroyed nearly 7,000 homes and businesses, and created damages in the amount of $150 million. Isn't that wild? Now, I don't know if he's a patsy or if, people say this was done on purpose. I don't know the answer to that, but I know it's crazy. And a lot of things in California and Hollywood are crazy. Speaking of crazy Hollywood, I watched this Charlie Sheen documentary. Wild stuff. Charlie Sheen, excellent actor. What a wild documentary that was. He really, talk about a tell-all book and a documentary to go along with it. It's called AKA Charlie Sheen. His birth name is Carlos Estevez. And man, yes, so he's like me, right? Not brown per se, but Hispanic. I believe they're Spaniard is their descent. Both Martin Sheen and his brother Emilio Estevez and good old Carlos Estevez, who goes by Charlie Sheen. And let me tell you, it is wild, some of the stuff that's in there. One of the things that I stuck out for me was that people who are having drug issues sometimes need ice down their pants. And I learned about this as a teenager. Somebody told me they used to do that for their siblings that were having heroin overdoses. And he talks about it in the movie as well in a different context. And that might be my very first question for Charlie Sheen when we get him on the line. I know we had a little trouble. I think he's standing by right now, so let's make sure we get him on. I know our system, the deep state, tries to prevent that. Folks, Rich Valdez coming right back with Charlie Sheen.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
How do I present this with any class?
I think we're past that, Charlie.
We're past that, yeah. When you got a lot of shame about a lot of stuff, shame is suffocating. I lit the fuse, and my life turns into everything it wasn't supposed to be. There's only one person alive that has the answers to so many people's questions about me. And that's it. Somebody call action.
He's going the distance. He's going for speed.
You wanted to like him because he was lovable, brilliant, handsome, charming, and smart.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, and I'm keeping you company tonight. I want to give you a little insight into the person we're about to talk to right now. Of course, you know him. I think everybody knows Charlie Sheen, right? But he was in Platoon, Wall Street, Major League, and so many other television shows, 2.5 Men, killing the game and continues to kill the game, right? Right now, he's got probably one of the top documentaries on Netflix. He's also got a book that came out recently called The Book of Sheen. It's a memoir about his life. It's a tell-all. And I got to tell you, I just watched the documentary. So many things I didn't know. And I thought I know a lot, having seen all those movies and having been a fan all these years. But I want to get right into it with our guest, Charlie Sheen. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you, Rich. Honored to be here.
Likewise, it's an honor to speak with you. And, you know,
thank you.
So many things, right, that you talk about in the documentary that I was just like, wow, that's interesting. And we'll break the ice with this one. There's a part where you talk about using an ice cube in a very interesting way. And it's funny because it brought me to my childhood. I grew up with a kid whose mom had brothers that had dealt with issues of addiction in Brooklyn with heroin. And that's what she would do. She said you would have to throw ice down their pants, and this would help them to prevent an OD. And I thought that was wild when I heard it when I was like 12 years old. But then hearing it again, it kind of brought me back to my childhood. And I thought, how did you come up with that idea? Is this like a known secret that the rest of us don't know about?
You know, it's interesting. I had never. I mean, that was just an in the moment Hail Mary, as it were. And I had heard about ice being used in, you know, certain sexual fetishes, or you know, right, something maybe I might have read in the Kama Sutra or whatever in all my travels. And I just thought, okay, I think it's about the only shot I have at staying awake for, I don't know, the next 12 or 15 minutes, you know? Cause I use ice on my eyes just in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. Just to kind of take the sting out. And that's, you know, did it hammered and still do it sober. And so when I requested a cup of ice and a napkin, everybody assumed I just wanted to give my eyes a little de-stinging, right? And then I was like, I'll be right back, and went to the bathroom in that cafe and just said, all right, here's, you know, here we go.
Wild story.
Yeah, and it worked. So in some way, I think taking that maiden push, for lack of a better description, I think it serves as a public service message in a way to somebody that, you know, and I'm not saying you're following. There it is. And it could be you're on a road trip and you have to deliver your you know, whatever is, you know, they're waiting for. And I don't know. It's just, it's out there now as a possible go-to.
Right. No, it's just fascinating to me. It was an interesting throwback for me. Now, there's a common theme in the documentary, and I would say with your life, your career in general, which is remarkable, by the way. You know, you dealt with addiction. This is, you know, widely known, and you've been now clean and sober 8 years. Congratulations. God bless. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And
thank you.
And something Sean Penn said in the documentary, it alludes to you being kind of superhuman. Saying that, you know, you should have been dead. Nobody else could handle this. And I guess the direction I want to go with that statement is, what is it that drives you? Is it God? Is it pure luck? Is it, you know, your own personal drive, or a combination of those things that gets you to the next big success after whatever setback you've had in the life of Charlie Sheen?
Gosh, it's, I appreciate those words from Sean about being superhuman, but I think that could be kind of a slippery place to you can't really fully buy into that. You can't rely on something like that. But, yeah, it was just, I don't know. It was, I think we do talk about in the doc that, even though there were consequences, they were always sort of negotiable, you know? And there was usually an off-ramp there was usually a job waiting. There was usually something that sent the message of, okay, yeah, you screwed up, but it really wasn't that bad. The only person you hurt was yourself. So here, let's dust off and get back to work. But what drives me or drove me, I think just comes down to passion. I think it just comes down to, passion and also necessity, that I don't have really, any other skills that I can make a living from. Right. And so that I had to get back to the place where I could still, take care of all my children or, whatever that part of my life looked like at the time. But it was also just a way to just to feel better about myself and know that I wasn't the things I was, the labels I was being described as, or the I wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't succumb to the judgment or people's, people were done
for you.
Exactly. And people were done with me over and over and over. And I guess there was some part of me that was, and I'll show them, and that's not always the best thing to, use as a motivational platform, but in and around a lot of that craziness, it's kind of like whatever got me to the next moment and away from.
A lot to be said about betting on yourself, no?
I think so. Yeah. But then it's interesting, having perspective and really kind of having time during these past 8 years to just look back on all that and then document it like I was able to with the doc and the book. And it's just the thing that's interesting for me is, telling these stories or writing these stories, was I wanted to take the reader, I wanted to take the audience on the journey, put them in the passenger seat, as it were. But there was kind of this nagging thought or feeling of when I was remembering all this stuff and putting it on the page, like, dude, what the hell, man? Why did it have to go here? How did it go? Why did it have to go that far? What were you trying to prove? What were you trying to prove? And it was just, and I still don't have an answer for that. I think a lot of it was performance driven. I mean, obviously there was, drugs and booze and there's that whole element. Right. But some of it felt literally like, okay, they've decided I'm this guy. And if that's the role they're insisting that I continue to play, then here we go.
Right. You just get in where you fit in. Well, you've been blackballed by the cartels, the Mexican cartels. They cut you off and a little bit in Hollywood, but it seems like you're making a comeback. This is a great documentary you got. What's next? What can we expect next from Charlie Sheen?
Well, I don't have anything specifically lined up or scheduled. I know what I want to do. The material that has been submitted that I've been reading is the best stuff I've seen in 20 years. So it's just I can feel the worm is turning on that front. Because I think what the documentary did a great job of was the like a whole retrospective, a whole archival filmography that I think kind of reminded people that, okay, he's not just the guy in the bowling shirt. He's, fake playing a piano. He's not just the guy, screaming, winning and 7-gram rocks. He's not just, there was a whole thing. There was a whole career, a whole series of cool stuff that had to have happened for anyone to care about the nutty stuff, And then I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he asked me something. I'm paraphrasing, like, like if you had to pick something that's like the most satisfying out of this reset, out of this return, this coming back into the fold, what would what would you cite? And I thought about it. I said, it feels really good to be back in a way and front and center and people not thinking that I actually went crazy and stayed crazy. Because just, I've always said, hey, it was like 3 months, man. It was 3 months. You
went through crazy.
Yeah, I went through crazy. Thank you. That is a perfect way to frame it. Yeah. So that's cool. And I think that's something that people are responding to, okay, he's still the guy that we grew up with and that we, grew fond of or supported or embraced or any of the above,
Charlie Sheen, something I've learned in this business that whether people like you, don't like you, criticize you, or support you, the talent typically speaks for itself. And everything else is professionalism and showing up for the job, right? So I think as long as you're doing that, you're going to do just fine.
Thank you. No, I'm excited to just give somebody my word and, again, and honor it like I used to. It was always, the mission always took priority. And then, the mission became, dope and booze and, like that. And that's just, but that's a young person's game, all that stuff. You're
the elder statesman of Hollywood now.
I turned 60 a few weeks ago, and hey, thank you. And I think if you thumb your nose at the universe one too many times, that's when that piano from the sky has your name on it.
Yeah, it sounds like a cartoon from the 80s. Charlie Sheen,
right.
The book is The Book of Sheen, a memoir. The documentary is AKA Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen, if people want to keep up to speed with you, where do they follow you? Instagram, social media, website, where do they go?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on X, and I guess I'm supposed to say formerly known as Twitter. Why does everybody have to write that every single time?
I still call it Twitter.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. All right. I'm
a rebel.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Us Mavericks. Yeah. And then, the website I'll probably get wrong. I don't have my finger on the pulse of all of this stuff, but I'm sure there's I'm sure there's like a bookofsheen.com. I'm sure there's a charliesheentour.com because I'm going to be out promoting the book in a multi-city tour, which is pretty cool, But gosh, I should have had.
That's all right. In the next segment, we'll plug it for you. And when you're in New York doing the book tour, you could stop by the studio. We could get in depth in the book. I'm happy to help you promote it and continue the conversation.
That would be great.
And something you said before about keeping your word, I want to let everybody know Charlie Sheen was on time for the interview, and it was our team that had a delay. So if we're cutting it short, it's my fault and not his. Charlie Sheen, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a heck of an actor, and I appreciate your time.
No, thank you. As I said, it's an honor to finally chat with you. Thank you.
Likewise, we'll do it again soon. I promise. God bless and
success. And let's do it in studio. Yeah.
Definitely in New York City. I'm right by World Trade. I'm looking forward to it.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
You bet. And amigos, we're coming right back. Your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and so much more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We're going to get to your thoughts, your phone calls, your reactions, everything that's going on in America at night. What an interesting conversation with Charlie Sheen. And again, the website that he was talking about is bookofsheenphotos.com. If you want to see photos from his book tour as it's currently going on, you can also get them at Charlie Sheen on X, formerly known as Twitter, as he mentioned, as well as at Charlie Sheen on Instagram. And you could just put the book, the title of the book, Book of Sheen, right in the Amazon website, and it brings you right to the page with Simon & Schuster, the publisher. So I encourage you to check that out. Of course, the two-part documentary on Netflix, it's called AKA Charlie Sheen. Very eye-opening, really raw, really, kind of really just tell all is for real. And as you can see, he's, somebody that, my takeaway from my conversation with Charlie Sheen was, he's a pretty humble guy for, a guy that was making $2 million an episode when he was at the height of his career in television, right? A movie actor that made it in TV. And it was just interesting, he said, when people pass their judgment on you. And it just made me think, when you have a body of work, whether you've made mistakes or not, whether you struggle with addiction or not, ultimately, they really can't take away the success you've had. You can take it away from yourself, but no one can take it away from you. Is one of the points I was trying to impress upon him, and I think that's a real thing, and I think that's part of the recovery process. That he's he's a grounded person now, and thinking like hopefully these people remember I'm still a kick butt actor. I can tell you in the days leading up to this in my personal life, people that my friends, people I see, family members saying, hey, look, I'm going to be interviewing Charlie Sheen. They were like, get out of here. Almost everybody I mentioned it to said, oh, he's one of my favorites. He's my favorite. I loved him in Wall Street. I loved him in Platoon. I loved 2.5 Men. There's a reason you make $2 million an episode back in the late 90s or early 2000s. When you have that kind of appeal. I can tell you, nobody's paying me $2 million an episode, that's for sure. I'm not jealous, but I'm saying if anybody wants to pay me that, I'm happy to do it. If anybody wants me to fill in for Stephen Colbert while he's going to be on hiatus, I'm also open to that. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nod, nod. All right. Anyway, you know how to get the book. Again, Charlie Sheen book. Go for it. Let's go to your thoughts, your calls, your reactions. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. Straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And let's go to, see, where do we want to go? Well, I'd be shortchanging if I went to your call right now. Forgive me, guys. But with the clock ticking and it's tight, I wouldn't, before you start talking, before you know it, the music will kick in. So I got to ask you to hold on a little bit. But very interesting stuff going on. And, people of all walks of life, they deal with addiction. They deal with demons. And the question, I guess, for all of us is, how do we respond? Do we kick them while they're down, or do we give them a hand to help them up? All right, amigos, think about that. More to come straight ahead. I continue with our late night national town hall conversation. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of the program, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. We're live and national this Wednesday night. Happy Hump Day. And here's the phone number if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to get into this, all right, because I think it's important that we chase the cash. And by chase the cash, I mean follow the money, right? Follow the money when it comes to domestic terror organizations and their memberships posing as protesters. And that is, in fact, I think what's going on in so many different parts of our country. However, we take it lightly. And this is something I think we can no longer, and I don't think we've ever taken it lightly on purpose, to be clear. But it's not something that we can continue to just ignore, turn a blind eye to, pretend it's not happening. We have a problem, right? We have a problem when you have, Nancy Pelosi, Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia coming out supporting this guy, Jay Jones, who said that his opponent, or somebody he was criticizing at the time, the Republican Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates, should be shot, and then going into his children being shot. This is clearly wrong, right? It's clearly wrong. But they try to make it okay. And there's very few folks that lean to the left that actually call people out for anything anymore. I know in the last couple of days I've seen a few things. I've seen, this is not just the last couple of days, but I noticed it the last couple of days. Bill Maher, right? Bill Maher, the comedian and talk show host, he mentions a lot of things, and he tends to call them out as he sees them. If he, sees terrorism coming from Hamas, he doesn't say that these are just Palestinians that are looking for peace and they're just pushing back on the oppressive Jews. He calls it what it is, right? The actual terrorist group is doing what terrorist groups do, and you see Hamas doing that. And then you see them do the same thing on college campuses in America and claim that, again, this is protest, this is the First Amendment, how dare you? They conflate them. We saw this also in the riots of 2020 and beyond. Why? And we've seen it many times. But this is how the left works, right? The communist is always looking for somebody to reasonably agree with whatever gripe or grievance you've harped on, so that you could go out there and cause some sort of chaos and then just, be like, well, no, I was here peacefully protesting, but these guys came along and messed it up. But when you really look at the things that are going on, look at the stuff in Portland. For years, these black-clad, what they call black bloc, Antifa members showing up with gas masks on to quote-unquote protest. Why would you wear a gas mask to a protest? Well, maybe because the police are going to deploy tear gas, and you might get hit with a flashbang grenade, and you put on your riot shield. They're dressed like the cops are. Now I get it. I do. I get it in the spirit of why should they be the only ones that are allowed to have fun? I get that. But my point is the cops are there because it's their job to ensure the public safety. The left is there to disrupt the public safety. And that's the part that I think, is really being lost here. And it's just not wise. The whole thing is not wise. But there's a clip over here that I want to show you. Just, for example, like in Chicago. You got Chicago just acting up. You got Governor J.B. Pritzker saying that Trump is a dictator. He's wannabe. He's an insecure dictator. And he challenges the president, come and get me. Listen to this, Governor J.B. Pritzker, number 9. Go right ahead.
The President of the United States in the last 24 hours called for you to be imprisoned. I want to give you an opportunity. We've seen your reaction on social media, but I want to hear what you have to say back to the President of the United States.
Well, let's start with the idea that this is a convicted felon. I mean, think about that, who's threatening to jail me. I got to say, this guy's unhinged. He's insecure. He's a wannabe dictator. And there's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me. So come and get me.
There's J.B. Pritzker, again, doing his absolute best to try and get a headline, right? He really, really wants to be taken seriously as a candidate for president. And I don't think it's working, personally. I don't know. There's a few things I've learned, and look, I've been wrong before. I'm from an era where pollsters like the Ragin' Cajun, James Carville, and others from that era, I remember them telling me, listen, if you ever run for office, you got to shave that beard. They only elect people that, clean cut, smooth. And I thought to myself, I don't think that's true. Well, here we are, fast forward a bunch of years, and voila. Vice President J.D. Vance gets elected with a full beard. God bless him. Senator Ted Cruz has been wearing a beard for a long time. I mean, maybe comes and goes, but yeah, there's a lot of beards out there. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. I think beards are back in style, right? We're making beards great again, and that's great. I am a beard guy, part of the beard gang, and I'm for it. I'm for it. But times have changed, and again, beard or no beard, the question really becomes: does J.B. Pritzker being so outside of the mainstream when it comes to what candidates look like, because he's a bigger guy, does that make a difference? And I know some people say, oh, come on, Rich, you're being a hater. No, I'm not. Listen, this is from one former fatty to another, right? And I'm not trying to make fun of him. I'm really just saying, do we have a history of big guys? I mean, General Ulysses Grant was a judge as well. He was a bigger guy, but again, I don't know that he was Pritzker sized. So again, I submit to you, the resident historians in our audience, is there a history of electing heavy men to the presidency? I don't know. I think most people run for president, they drop a lot of weight so that they're able to hang on the campaign trail. So I don't have the answer to that. I'm not trying to poke fun. It's a genuine question on my behalf. I don't believe that the candidate that is least healthy, right, who's got the highest BMI, body mass index, I don't believe that's the person that wins the election. I could be wrong. Maybe America's a lot less vain than I'm giving her credit for. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that, of course, your reactions and everything else. Plus, we're going to, like I said, we are going to chase the cash. I want to connect with Seamus Bruner. Seamus Bruner, of course, the Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute and the author of the book Controligarchs. And he's going to join us because I want to talk about these people, like in Pritzker's neighborhood, like the people in Oregon, in Portland to be exact, these people that are actively protesting and borderline secretly disguised domestic terrorists, portraying protesters. Who's paying for these people? Where does this money come from? And why don't we know more about it, right? You can say, well, where do the MAGA people come from? I think we all know. The MAGA movement in large part funds itself, and you can always find out the information for that. But when you go to Open Secrets and stuff like that, you're going to see a lot of big donations coming from kind of obscure organizations that you can't really pinpoint on people, right? Like trusts, blind trusts and whatnot. And this has been going on forever. This is where, the whole dark money argument comes into play. So I'm looking forward to our conversation with Seamus Bruner and find out, who's paying for all these people? Who's paying for these bricks? Who's paying for so much of what's going on? Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
You have given us the voice of hope. You give us hope, and we thank you so much for that. You make things seem brighter.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
President Trump's going after top Democrat donor George Soros and his son Alexander for allegedly supporting, quote, violent protests. All right, Ashley, what does the president want?
Well, Trump says Soros and his son, Alexander, should face federal racketeering charges. He posted this on Truth Social, quote, George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests and much more, all throughout the United States of America. Now, Soros has drawn a lot of attacks from MAGA Republicans for his long history of financial support for Democrats and liberal causes. But before leaving office, former President Joe Biden awarded the elder Soros with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That is the nation's top civilian honor. But Trump went on to say, quote, Soros and his group of psychopaths have caused great damage to our country. That includes his crazy West Coast friends. Be careful. We're watching you. That's the message from the president, Stu.
He doesn't hold back, does he? All right.
That is a report from the Fox Business Channel, Stuart Varney. And interesting stuff, right? George Soros has been our favorite bad guy for a long time. And look, I get it. Everybody needs a foil. And the guy's rich and he funds things that he believes in. But I have a tough time believing that he's the only one that's creating this dark web of resources to promote, his left-wing proclivities. I think there's a bunch of guys out there like the founder of LinkedIn and a bunch of others that really get in on this action. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just read too much of the comments area on Twitter. I don't know. But I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to bring in our guest, Seamus Bruner. Seamus Bruner is the Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute. He's with us now. He's author of the book Controligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. Seamus Bruner, welcome back.
Hey, Rich, it is great to be with you, and your suspicions are dead on. I'm glad you mentioned the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman. Yes. George Soros is not the only one, of course. He is one of a number of radical left-wing billionaires funding the chaos in our country, from Portland to Chicago, from Atlanta to New York. All of these radical left-wing Marxist uprisings that are happening. And you're seeing Portland and Seattle and Chicago right now. But if you just remember, just a few years ago, you had Atlanta, you had New York. On October 7th, you had the pro-Hamas demonstrations in New York. These are all carefully coordinated, highly organized, and heavily funded by radical left-wing funders. And I've named them. I was at the White House today briefing President Trump on this. And he was very excited to learn about Neville Roy Singham, the People's Forum. This is a Chinese communist.
Yeah. He's another weirdo.
Yes. And there's other foreign billionaires. Hans-Jörg Wyss, I mentioned him today. He's a Swiss billionaire. He has no business interfering in our political process, and yet he pours tens of millions of dollars into these uprising and these professional protest organizations. Things like, Antifa-adjacent organizations, the things that create the conditions for Antifa. And so you're exactly right, Rich. All of these professional protest and chaos organizations are heavily funded by radical left-wing billionaires.
This is a very big deal because, again, I don't want to sound hyperbolic, right, Seamus Bruner? I don't want to make it sound like there wasn't a billionaire that funded, at least in some part, the re-election campaign for President Trump. I think there's a grand difference when you go from donating to political causes and whatnot to actually trying to, subvert the system. And I feel like that's what really happens here. I remember some years ago, George Soros took exception to the amount of black men that were incarcerated. And rather than invest his money into helping the community, helping dads, stay in the home, things that they know will reduce crime, the answer he came up with was we're going to get district attorneys, prosecutors that are going to turn their, back on crime. They're not going to prosecute these things. We're going to stop putting, in particular, black and brown men in jail. And he started to fund these district attorney races all over the country. And to me, This is very different than Elon backing Trump. Some might disagree with me, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue here, because I'm not saying you can't donate to things you believe in politically. I'm saying that we have to have to be honest about it. I don't know if that makes sense.
It absolutely does, and especially in the wake of the brutal Charlie Kirk assassination, we are seeing that one side is different than the other side. One side celebrates and glorifies and revels in violence. I mean, you just saw in Virginia a candidate for governor saying that 2 bullets in the head is an okay thing to say. And then you see Senator Tim Kaine and others saying, well, that's really not a big deal. So the left wing absolutely is okay with violence. They are okay jailbreaking the prisons. I don't want to sound hyperbolic here, but it's just true. George Soros funds prosecutors who allow violent criminals to get out of jail. And when they get out of jail and they've got a rap sheet a mile long, they commit more violent crimes. It's really not rocket science. It's not a shocker. Someone who's got 15 charges for violent crimes, if you let them out of jail again, they're probably going to commit another violent crime. And so George Soros is the main person who people key in on, rightly so, because he seems to be the most prolific funder of all of these terrible policies that make our country less safe. But like you said at the beginning, he is not the only one. We have identified, I would say, a dozen funding, like large left-wing funding networks who fund the same priorities as George Soros. I'll give you an example. The Arabella Funding Network. This is probably one of the biggest. Now, George Soros pours a ton of money into the Arabella Funding Network, and it has all kinds of. It's got about 7, actually more, but 7 major funds: the New Venture Fund, the Hopewell Fund, the 1630 Fund, and all of these funds, the Windward Fund, they pour money into so-called criminal justice reform, which means soft on crime policies. And Soros is not the only one, of course. There's other left-wing billionaires. You mentioned the LinkedIn founder and several others, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, like big dogs funding this chaos.
Hang on right there, Seamus Bruner. We're coming right back. Seamus Bruner's from the Government Accountability Institute. He's got a great book called Control-Oligarchs, and when we come back, we continue the conversation on what's going on here. Things are out of control. They say Trump is out to get them. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
I do want to ask you about the way that you were conducting your questions to the Attorney General. I thought with you, she actually answered the substance of your questions, but with many of your colleagues, it seemed like she came ready with lines of attack of her own. What do you make of this trend, the tone and tenor that we've seen from Trump administration officials coming up here to testify as you guys are doing your job of oversight?
Yeah, I've never seen kind of personal attacks. Kash Patel just not even coming out of the block, sort of attacking senators in a very personal manner. That's not the way it should be done. We have a responsibility, actually, as spelled out in the Constitution, to provide oversight and checks and balances. It's really unfortunate because everybody in that room wants to see violent crime go down. And we have real questions about using the Department of Justice as an arm of the president, as his personal attorneys, to prosecute his personal political vendettas, to pull people away from the kind of crimes that we want solved and instead focus on people like Comey and other political targets of his. And he's not hiding it. He's being very open. He's literally tweeting at the Attorney General of the United States of America, telling her to take out my enemies in a prosecutorial manner.
That is Senator Cory Booker on MSNBC earlier today, spreading misinformation, in my opinion. I want to bring Seamus Bruner back into this. Seamus Bruner, do you think that that's what's happening here? Do you think President Trump is just tweeting and saying, get rid of my enemies?
Absolutely not, Rich. Nothing could be further from the truth. During the previous administration, the Biden administration, Biden's team locked up dozens, I would count at least 30 people who were actually not guilty, people like Steve Bannon and many, many others. Of course, the 1,000+ January 6ers. So many political opponents, it's not even funny. The difference between the people Donald Trump is locking up is that they're actually guilty. And he is not even locking them up yet. He's just investigating them. So this is not like political retribution like they would like to characterize the actions. This is finally law and order, trying to clean up our streets, trying to remove criminal, illegal aliens from our country, and it's long overdue.
You know, Seamus Bruner, I find this whole thing interesting because while they keep saying that Trump is going after his political enemies, obviously this is a page from their own playbook where he was their political enemy and they went after him and his son and his lawyers and everybody else. And ultimately, this boils down to now what we were just talking about. You've got a bunch of left-wing billionaires that are funneling money however they can. And listen, if there's a right-wing billionaire, like maybe Elon Musk, other conservative billionaires are out there, happy to, to take a donation from them if we're doing the right thing, right? Speech is speech. I get it. However, I think when you get to, when you have to hide when you have to cover your tracks to pretend things aren't what they are, and you have to use deception, dishonest tactics, funding people with gas masks and pallets of concrete that can be chipped off and turned into little rocks, little boulders that they can throw at the police. This is no longer politics. This is no longer peaceful protest, anything like that. This is literally a crime, in my opinion.
There's a term for it, Rich. It's called a color revolution. George Soros is very experienced at funding color revolutions. I talk about it all throughout Chapter 6, the Soros chapter of my book, Control Oligarchs. He has funded every color revolution across Central and Eastern Europe for the last 30 years. I mean, there's probably 6 or 7 color revolutions, including in Ukraine in 2013, 2014. The Maidan Square, he funded that, and that is to overthrow an administration. And so we saw this in the first Trump term where, you had Antifa back then. I think a lot of people, I think this audience would agree that Antifa has run amok for far too long. And so what Donald Trump actually is the most patient and law-abiding ruler of the country, because you look at what President Biden did. He locked up, with the Fonnie Willis and the Jack Smith. I mean, the things we're learning about what Jack Smith did to Biden's political opponents, it's nothing compared to Donald Trump has been extremely patient. I think this audience, I think many of us would agree that it is long overdue for people to face the music. Donald Trump forgave Hillary Clinton after the 2016 election defeat, and now we see what James Comey did. We see what the Obama FBI and DOJ did in spying on Trump's campaign. He forgave them, and many people were very frustrated. Why would you forgive them? The promise was to lock her up, and yet Donald Trump said it's time to move on. So it was extremely magnanimous that he did that, and now he's realizing that he gets no credit for being magnanimous, and now it's time to enforce the rule of law.
Right, and quite frankly, I think things have gotten more egregious. And listen, I get it. I was the first one saying, and I still think, I really don't think that President Trump is actively, aggressively trying to go after his political enemies, per se. I really do believe President Trump is just merely after justice. He's merely after trying to do the right thing. And he's open to saying, look, I didn't want to go after the former first lady, no matter how bad things got between us, because he didn't want it to be about that. I think now it's not about what happened to him. It's about what's happening to America, and that's where he's drawn the line.
Exactly right, Rich. It's long overdue that we clean up. And honestly, it's going to be a hard task. I don't know that Donald Trump can do it. I don't know. It's going to take, I think, in my opinion, I think it's going to take decades because of the brainwashing that's going on in the schools. The public schools are raising up generations of Marxists and nihilists who, you look at the last several assassinations and, school, shooters, They are this weird ideology of Marxist nihilists. It's a very strange combination. They're extremely online.
Along with transgender. There seems to be a growing number of them.
Exactly. Like this is like it's this weird sexual deviancy, not just transgender, but like you look at like with Tyler Robinson and the Charlie Kirk assassination, they're into like furry and things that like most normal people listening to this program can't really understand, but they are in these very fringe, very niche corners of the internet where they're simultaneously pro-gun. We did a big piece on the armed queers of Salt Lake City. There's no connection at this time to the Kirk assassination, but the FBI is investigating. But you look at, so they're pro-LGBTQ, they're pro-furry and various forms of sexual deviancy, but they're also pro-gun. They want to be able to, commit violence. When you see, I'll give you an example of our recent investigation that we briefed the White House on today. There's this thing called the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club. And there's also something called the Socialist Rifle Association. These are Antifa-adjacent organizations. They're Marxist. They want to overthrow the country. There's foreign influence going on. But there's also elite funding from the biggest funders that I mentioned in the previous segment. And so it's kind of hard to unravel. And so traditional forms of law enforcement investigation don't really cover this because, of course, we believe in the Constitution. Of course, we believe in First Amendment rights and the rights to say whatever you want and peacefully assemble. But when you look at these extremely online individuals, they want to implement Marxism in America, and they believe that using violence to do so is a totally okay way of doing it. I'm not a fan of really labeling political enemies as quote-unquote domestic terrorists, and at the same time, using violence to achieve political ends is a textbook definition that even the left agrees is terrorism. So it's a complicated situation, and I don't know that Donald Trump in one term is going to be able to solve it. We're going to have to take back our country ourselves by educating our youth, by taking back our schools, by making sure that people realize that Marxism is not the answer.
Yeah, 100% right. Seamus Bruner, outstanding. Now, what else that's not classified that did you brief the White House on today?
Well, what I told President Trump today was that there's an ecosystem. It's not just Antifa. It's very easy. Everybody can see Antifa. They can see, the black and red and the black bloc clothing and the gas masks and the attack on the ICE facilities. But there's actually this entire ecosystem. And I touched on education just a minute ago. It begins at a very young age. If you look at someone like Tyler Robinson, it takes a long time to radicalize someone. He grew up in what would appear to be a very normal home, even a right-leaning home, Trump-supporting parents. And but then they go through the education system, and there's all these ideologies that public school teachers are pumping into kids' heads. That's kind of the first phase. And you see it with, after the Kirk assassination, all these teachers celebrating. I mean, there was a story about how a teacher made the entire class watch the gruesome graphic video of the bullet hitting Charlie Kirk over and over and over again. So you've got you see the flags in the classroom. It starts there. But then it moves on to these groups. I mean, it's not just Antifa. It's, like I said, the Socialist Rifle Association. They find camaraderie because they're mostly nihilistic, kind of secluded in this very online, lots of screen time culture. Yeah. They find camaraderie amongst a bunch of other, strange individuals, not normal, I would say, individuals. And then you get into the actual boots on the ground, the Antifa, the people who are attacking federal law enforcement officers and ICE facilities. And then you get into, there's so many layers to this. You get into the bail funds and the legal defense. I mean, even organizations like ACLU, which historically people say, look, the ACLU is untouchable. Well, when they are bailing out people who have just committed violent acts and getting them back on the streets for the protest the next day, that needs to be looked into. I mean, I don't know what the
kind
solution
of like providing
is.
material support.
Exactly. And like you mentioned, it's very weird to see pallets of bricks and pallets of concrete just laid out before. All of this costs money. This Antifa violence does not happen in a vacuum. It requires significant resources. Where are those resources coming from? And it's only natural to ask questions like these groups that are very close to Antifa, that get funding from George Soros and the Arabella Network and the Tides Network and, all the rest, Ford Network. There's a bunch of big billion-dollar foundations that are pumping money into this ecosystem. They need to be looked into as well.
Seamus Bruner, folks, you can give him a follow at Seamus Bruner online. Check him out at the Government Accountability Institute. Sir, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I'm out of time here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rich.
You bet. And amigos, your calls and more coming up right now.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And we go to your calls. Let's see, where do we go? We start with Joe. Joe's been on hold from Bethel, Connecticut, WLAD. Go right ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Valdez.
Good evening, Joe. What's on your mind?
I think we could agree that Mr. Trump is going to run the table for the next 3 years, but I am worried about the 5 decades after that, most of which I won't be here, but you will be. And I have a question for you.
Okay, what's that?
As the barber biblical Greek student that you are, the question is, how many hairs on the heads of the Hydra?
Well, when it comes to hair, I know a thing or two, but this is one of those areas I honestly couldn't, I couldn't weigh in, right? I don't know, what is that, 3, 4 usually is pictured, but I don't know. I honestly don't have an answer for you, Joe.
Talking about the money tonight. The Hydra, every time you cut off the head, 2 more appeared.
Grow back.
And to kill it, you hit the heart. And
here's
money is the heart.
Oh, sure. Listen, I get that. I don't think any of us has a way of knowing, because this is truly a tug of war, right? You've got, in my opinion, we are well positioned. I'm very optimistic on so many things, right? I'll use a few examples. Number one, look at the team, the cabinet that President Trump has. I don't think anybody here can tell me that Stephen Miller is not a young man, Marco Rubio is not a young man, J.D. Vance, not a young man. These are all young men. These are young men that are fighting like hell, and they're capable, and they're competent, and they're making it happen, right? And that's just 3. I mean, then there's Pete Hegseth, all right, Sean Duffy. I mean, there's just so many, and just a few secretaries that I'm mentioning right now. You talk about some of the very capable women in this administration, Caroline Leavitt, Pam Bondi, and many others, Kristi Noem. And you have to think, we have an incredible bench, people that are going to be able to go into future public service with a solid core of accomplishments that they can bring to the table. Now, I don't know that can be said on the other side. You've got AOC, and again, I don't know what the number is today, but this is probably her 4th re-election. She won in 2018. maybe fifth, whatever it is, right? And fourth, probably I would say. And guess what? How many bills has she actually introduced and gotten passed into legislation? I don't think that number's higher than 3 or 4 actually sponsored bills. If I'm wrong, I'll say I was wrong. It's not a high number, that's for sure. For a lawmaker, she's not making many laws. She's not really benefiting the people in Queens and in the Bronx. So I use her as an example because people think she's, the best candidate since sliced bread. But look around. What does our bench look like? Mazie Hirono, Elizabeth Warren. Who else is on that list? Katie Porter. All right, she might be a little bit of a rhetorician, but is she the future of the California Democrats? Is she the future of the American Democrat Party? To me, it seems like they are in such bad shape. Hakeem Jeffries, he's on the wrong side of every issue. You've got this big split between the radical, crazy progressives on one side, and then on the other side, those that want to keep getting elected. So, yes, you cut off the head of the hydra, a couple grow back. There's money for days, but what I don't see them having is a bench, and that's why I'm optimistic. Joe in Bethel, Connecticut, thank you for the call. Shout out to WLAD. Don't go anywhere.
Is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So now we're in a government shutdown. And you may be asking yourself, how the hell did we get here? Donald Trump and the Republican Party are hell-bent on taking health care away from 60 million people, closing community clinics, rural hospitals, nursing homes, all so they can keep giving tax breaks to their billionaire friends. It's a disgrace. So Democrats have 3 words for this. No way. It's literally life or death. We will not let Republicans blow up our healthcare system.
No effing way. That's Senator Chuck Schumer in a video message yesterday. Democrats are not voting to reopen the government. No effing way. Now, listen, something I'm going to tell you. There's better be no effing way you guys miss the Charlie Sheen interview. Make sure you check it out online, richvaldez.com. But I want you to hear a couple of, you're not going to hear anything. I had a couple of callers lined up, but the music means we got to go. So, there isn't enough time in the day. Start lobbying for that 4th hour. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.